is coming.
All these voices. All these voices. All these things you can't explain. All these painful memories. They keep haunting you and daunting me. It's just the ghost of you and me. It's just the smoke and gasoline. It's just the ghost of you and me. Of you and me. All these whispers.
My name is James Hershey. Right back.
All these shadows in my mind. But my reflection I can't find. It's just the ghost of you and me. It's just the smoke and gasoline. It's just the
That ought
ghost
to do
of
it.
you and me. Of you and me. Don't let 'em take you away. Don't let 'em bring you down inside. It's just the mirrors in your mind. Don't let 'em bring you down.
Hello, everyone, and welcome to another episode of Staring into the Abyss. I am your host, horror author James Hershey Jr., and with me, as always, my co-host, Old Boy James Ash. How you doing, brother?
Pretty good. How's everybody doing tonight?
We are also joined tonight by a very special guest. You might know him from some of his movies. He's the director of 100 Tears, Rot, the new Songs of Solomon, which is a new American Guinea Pig movie that's going to be coming out, which is going to be super sweet. Maybe we'll have a chance to talk about that a little bit tonight as well. And if I'm not mistaken, and if I am mistaken, please correct me, I believe he has had something to do with all of the Guinea Pig movies, whether it was special effects or directing. But our guest tonight is Marcus Koch, the director, the special effects guy, the guru of Gore. Marcus, how you doing, brother?
Doing good. Yeah, hanging in there.
Well,
What's up, brother?
was I right about you having something to do with all of the Guinea Pig movies?
Yes, correct. I've been there since ground zero. We're up to 4 films now. The 4th film actually having nothing to do with Unearthed films, but we picked up another film from Italy. So it's been me and Stephen Biro of Unearthed Films doing Bouquet of Guts and Gore, Bloodshock, and now Song of Solomon, which just played Sitges Film Festival in Barcelona last week.
Yeah, that's
Awesome.
sweet. I'm looking forward to checking that out. The reason we have Marcus on tonight, well, we have a couple reasons actually. One, we just like Marcus. He's a really cool guy, and we enjoy chatting with him. We've done a couple shows with him so far. One of the shows, for some reason, was just all messed up. I don't know what the hell happened to that show, but we always have a good time when Marcus is on. And Halloween is coming up, and that's kind of a big holiday in our profession. I mean, I'm a horror author. He's a horror director. Old Boy runs a big horror group. So Halloween's kind of a busy time for us. And we thought it'd be cool to have a director on, and who's also a friend of ours, to talk about horror movies and some of the true stories that those horror movies are based on. Now, the cool thing about horror movies is people love to be scared. But they don't like to be scared out in the woods where something can actually kill them. They like to be scared in a movie theater where they're safe, because you get that exhilaration of fear, but you also have that sense that, oh, I'm okay. I'm in a movie theater. Nothing can hurt me. This is all make-believe. But what if it wasn't make-believe? It's surprising how many of these horror movies are either based on true stories or they are inspired by true events that happened that gave the person the idea for the horror movie. So I thought it'd be a cool show tonight to go through some of these horror movies and talk about them and talk about the actual true events that either inspired them or that they're based on. And some of these are going to blow you guys away when you hear it. You're just not going to believe that there's anything true about these movies. But in doing this research, I was kind of blown away because I had no idea. So the first one we're going to start with is probably my personal favorite horror movie of all time. I saw this when I was a very little child, and it really touched home with me because of the way I write my novels. So it hit a really deep chord with me, and it really resonated. And that is A Nightmare on Elm Street. Now, you might think, whoa, Nightmare on Elm Street is based on a true story. Are you out of your mind? Freddy Krueger killing people in their dreams? That's nuts, right? Well, there was never an actual Freddy Krueger that killed people in their dreams that we know of. But this movie was actually inspired by a group of refugees that died while having nightmares. And they couldn't figure out what killed them. So they examined the bodies, and the medical reports actually said that there was nothing physically wrong with these people. There was no explanation to why they should have died, but yet they did. So we don't know if they died of pure terror or if there was something that was killing them in their dreams, like happens in the movies. That was one that I didn't expect. Another one I didn't expect is this next one, which is Child's Play. Now, this was actually based on a nurse who supposedly put a voodoo curse on this author, Robert Eugene Otto, and it transformed one of his childhood dolls into this terrible, menacing nightmare doll, right? For a lot of people, Child's Play is a scary movie, and it falls into that category of a lot of those movies that have the haunted or the possessed dolls. That really scares the hell out of a lot of people. And the idea that this actually existed in real life, that there was a doll that had a curse on it, which would run around and do horrible things, that just makes Child's Play even spookier. Because Child's Play has always been one of those movies where I really enjoy them. You know, they're really cool movies, but I always wondered, why don't the person just kick the little doll out the window or something and run away? Like, I don't understand why that doll should be so terrifying. But then to think about in real life, a doll actually running around like that would kind of spook you. The next one is one we were talking about before we went on the air, and that's The Conjuring. And that's based on the Warrens. I'll let Marcus get into this a little bit later because he was explaining it and it was really interesting. So I'm going to save this one for Marcus, but that's one on the list as well. The next one is The Rite. This is a movie about exorcism and the devil, basically. And it's based on the life of one of the most famous exorcists in America, which was Father Gary Thomas. This is not really a true story as far as just one story, but it's based on his entire life's work. So that's kind of interesting as well. The next one is The Haunting in Connecticut. This is another one of those ghost movies. For those that haven't seen it, you buy a new house, you move into it. Oh man, there's ghosts here. They don't want you here. It's kind of the same old song and dance with these ghost movies. But the cool thing about this one, and what I think makes it kind of scary, the story, is that this actually did happen to Al and Carmen Snedeker. They actually bought a house that was above a funeral parlor. And a lot of the things that happened in this movie actually happened to them. So this one's based on a true story as well. The next one is The Exorcism of Emily Rose. Now this is based on the life of Annalise Michael, who was possessed by demons. This is actually a very interesting case if you read the case study on this, because the possession was so strong that it took almost a whole year to finally complete the exorcism. And they had to do multiple exorcisms, but to finally get rid of the demon, it took almost a full year. So if you get the chance, I'm not going to go into the full case study here because that would pretty much take up the whole hour. Maybe we'll do a show just on this someday. But that is a fascinating case. The next one is another one that has to do with The Conjuring and the Warrens, which is Annabelle. Now this is also based on a supposed true story about the doll, which is actually in the Warrens Museum. And this doll was supposedly found up underneath the house, and they brought it up, and they tried to get rid of it, and it came back. There's a whole big story that goes with this one as well. And this is one that is really, really popular right now, this Annabelle. This is another one of those haunted, possessed doll kind of movies. The next one is The Serpent and the Rainbow. Now, this is a movie by Wes Craven, and it's a very strange movie. But when you think about what it's about voodoo and Haitians and zombies. So it's kind of obvious that it's going to be weird because that whole culture it's kind of strange, the whole voodoo culture. It's very different from what we're used to. But it was actually based on a case of a guy named Clervis Narcisse, which is a Haitian man, and he was allegedly transformed into a zombie through a bunch of different potions that he was given that were poisons, and it actually made him into a zombie. So that's what that movie was actually based on. The next one really blew me away because I had no idea about this at all. I always thought this was complete make-believe. But the movie The Blob. Now this movie came out in, I believe, 59, and it's one of those sci-fi horror kind of movies. And it was inspired by a newspaper report about a gelatinous purple lump that crashed down in a farmer's field right outside of Philadelphia in 1950. The scientists went there to try to see what the hell this thing was, and it dissolved before they could dissect it and really get any real answers. This one blew me away because I had no idea. I'd never heard about that before. The next one is Open Water. And in this movie, a couple gets abandoned in the ocean, and it's full of sharks. And the sharks, of course, are going to eat them. Now, this was actually based on the real-life ordeal of Tom and Eileen Lonergan. And it happened off of Australia's Great Barrier Reef. So I don't know if you've ever seen this movie, but I watch this because I love shark movies. And this one was one that kind of got to me a little bit because I was thinking, man, could you imagine that? You go out for a fun day and you end up getting left behind. And then you're just stuck with a ton of sharks. And I don't know about you, but to me, that's one of the scariest ideas out there. The next one is Psycho. And everybody knows movie Psycho. They made that Bates Motel show in that whole universe about Norman when he was younger. This is not really based on a true story, but it was inspired by Ed Gein. Ed Gein was a serial killer in Wisconsin in the 50s. He was responsible for the murders of Bernice Worden and Mary Hogan. Those were his only two confirmed murders, but he is accused or believed to have committed tons more. He's the guy that had lampshades made out of human skin and all those kind of things. He's a real sick puppy. There are a lot of movies on this list that are inspired by Ed Gein. The Texas Chainsaw Massacre was also one that was inspired loosely on Gein and other things, and I'll get to that in a little bit. The next one is From Hell. That's the movie with Johnny Depp. This one is obviously about the Jack the Ripper slayings. Everybody knows who Jack the Ripper is. I'm not going to go into all that, but that's what this one's based on. The Texas Chainsaw Massacre, what I was just talking about, that movie is partially based on Ed Gein, and there's also this story out there. Now, I don't know how true this is. I've had several people on the show in the past, and some have said it was true, and some have said it wasn't true. But it was supposedly also based on a true story that happened in Texas, where people were actually killing and using human meat in the chili cook-offs. Now, I've had people that were obsessed with Texas Chainsaw Massacre say that is 100% not true, that it's just make-believe, it's one of those urban legends. And then I've had other people say that it was true. So me personally, I'm not sure. I don't know. But that's both sides. The next one is The Strangers. Now, this is a strange movie. This is one where a young couple head to this home out in the country, and they're terrorized by three people that are wearing these very strange masks. Now, the director drew the inspiration for his film from a string of break-ins that occurred in the neighborhood that he grew up in. And it was also inspired by the Manson killings. The next one is The Exorcism of Emily Rose. Now, this is another one of those exorcism movies. I'm not a big fan of exorcism movies, but a lot of these are actually based on real life. And this one was inspired by a possession of a 16-year-old German girl named Anneliese Michael in 1968. And she was believed to have been possessed for 7 years. But an exorcism was not actually performed until 1975. And it took two priests 10 months to successfully perform this exorcism. The next one is I Spit on Your Grave. In this one, a writer is gang raped, beaten, and left for dead by four guys. And then she ends up hunting them down and killing them in wonderful, wonderful ways. This is actually a really cool movie. The rape part sucks. It's kind of cringy to watch, but, and I don't mean it was done badly. I just mean rape is cringy to watch anyway. But the revenge part of this movie is actually really cool. Now, this was based also from a real-life experience. The guy that wrote it also directed it, Mir Zarchi, and he drew the inspiration from an event that happened in 1974 when he came across a woman that had been brutally raped and left for dead. He got the woman and he took her to the police, and the police did not treat her very well at all. They did not believe her, and they basically told her that there wasn't much they could do for her. And he wrote the story based on this woman and what would have happened if she would have taken matters into her own hands, so to speak, got her justice herself instead of trying to rely on the law. The next one on this list is another one of the shark movies, and it is actually the shark movie, Jaws. Now, everybody knows what this movie is about. I don't really have to go into that. But the film was based on the novel Jaws, and the novel was actually inspired by a guy named Frank Mundus, who was a fisherman who caught a great white shark off Long Island in 1964. And it was also based on the string of shark attacks along the Jersey Shore in 1916. And these shark attacks happened multiple times throughout history along that area. For some reason, it just keeps having shark attacks. And in one of these attacks, it was actually very interesting because it was a couple bull sharks, not great white sharks. And they actually swam up the rivers. And there were shark attacks that happened 100 miles away from the ocean in the freshwater rivers, because a bull shark can live in either salt or fresh water. So you had people that were going in to swim and getting attacked by sharks in the river, like outside of their house or whatever, like 100 miles away from the ocean, which is crazy, man. That's spooky as hell. The next one is The Hills Have Eyes. Now, in this movie, a family is driving their car and it breaks down. They're on their way to California. And it breaks down in this area that is closed off to the public. And they find that the area is inhabited by a family of savage cannibals. And basically in this movie, the cannibals are trying to capture and kill the people and eat them. Now, this film is based on the story of Alexander Sawney Bean. Now, Bean was the head of a clan of cave dwellers in the 16th century in Scotland, I believe. And the group lived in the caves for like 25 years. And over that time, they trapped and consumed over 1,000 people before they were finally hunted down and killed. The next movie is The Town That Dreaded Sundown. In this movie, a Texas Ranger hunts a killer that is terrorizing a small town in Arkansas in 46. Now, this film is loosely based on a spree of killings that took place in Texarkana in the 40s. The killer was nicknamed the Phantom Killer because he left no clues to his identity behind, and there were never any witnesses left alive. The Phantom was responsible for 8 murders over a 10-week period. And this serial killer was never identified and never caught. The next one is The Exorcist. And this is actually the last one that I will talk about, and then I'm going to throw over to Old Boy. And this movie is actually based on the novel The Exorcist. And the novel was based on the real-life story of Roland Doe. Now, that was a pseudonym that was given to the boy from the story because they didn't want to use his real name. And he became possessed in 1949 after playing around with the Ouija board. And the Catholic Church was brought in to perform the exorcism. It's interesting here that this was a little boy, and in the movie, it's a little girl. I'm not exactly sure why that was done that way, but maybe Old Boy or maybe Marcus knows.
Exorcist. They did it for Hollywood reasons because they liked the girl better. It would sell better. Plus, what you didn't say about The Exorcist, actually people died during that set. Like the guy falling down the stairs, the stunt guy died, breaking his neck. Like after they did the movie, the studio caught on fire, and I guess somebody else died too in making the movie. There's a couple things that's really bad about that movie. It happened. I don't think it was like the first film burned up or something. There's all kinds of stuff that's happened after they made that Exorcist movie on top of that. So that's a pretty interesting one. You saved the best one for last because I actually know a lot about that. But the original story was it was a boy, and they changed it, because of the girl, to scare people more. And that's what they ended up doing. Another one you forgot is Mary Shelley's Frankenstein. There's supposed to be truth on that. It's not how they did in Hollywood, but they're saying that somebody actually brought back a hand and she actually saw this, and that's where she got the idea of Frankenstein from. And Brad Stoker's Dracula, of course, he got it from Vlad the Impaler. In the 1400s, he was a killer in Romania, and made the story and added the whole, the Dracula part where he turns into a vampire. In Texas Chainsaw Massacre, we all know it. I love that movie, and that's based off of true killings. It's been exaggerated by Hollywood, but another one's Wrong Turn. I guess that's about the family in Tennessee that ate people, and that supposedly was a real story too, based off of them.
Yeah, that was actually not in Tennessee though. It was up here in West Virginia, right by where I live.
West
Actually,
Virginia.
yeah, I'm in Virginia, but I'm right by the border, and it's literally 5 or 10 minutes from my house is where this supposedly took place.
Why do they always say Tennessee? They always say it's up in the the mountains or something, the Ozarks. That's what they always claim it's
Well,
up there.
they say it's in the Blue Ridge Mountains, which is the
Yeah.
Blue Ridge Mountains runs all the way from where I am, all the way down through Tennessee and Georgia.
Yeah, I forgot their name. It was a family that killed. That's kind of where the Hill House Eyes came from too. The same family that actually ate people and they got caught. But there's quite a few, like you were saying, the Jaws. That's after the mastodon shark, the megalodon shark. Sorry guys, and that's where they got that story, and that's one of my favorite movies. And The Exorcist of Emily Rose. That's another great movie they got from Plenty of Story. I didn't know the Nightmare on Elm Street. That one was a new one. I never even heard about that one, James. Where'd you get that one at?
I found it in my research, and that one kind of shocked me because that out of all these horror movies, that was the one I least expected to have any kind of truth to it at all, because that whole idea is so fantastic. It was actually based on a group of refugees that died in their sleep, and it completely baffled the doctors and the scientists that tried to figure out why these people died, because they were young, they were in good health, there was absolutely no reason they should have died, but supposedly they were sleeping and having really bad nightmares, and they just ended up dead.
Yeah, that's crazy because I didn't even know that he actually made that off of another movie. I heard something about it a long time ago, and now you confirmed it. So that's pretty crazy. I didn't even know that. I'm not a big fan, honestly, of those movies because I'm not a big fan of child molesting. Plus, I've had something in my own life personally happen, but I like Freddy Krueger and I like Robert Englund. I thought he played an awesome part. But I never really cared for those movies. I don't. People are why I'm more of an Evil Dead fan. I was always into the Necronomicon, and there's truth about the Necronomicon too. It actually was a real book, not exaggerated by Hollywood, but I actually have a copy of the Necronomicon. They just got some of the stories from there, and that's where like a lot of H.P. Lovecraft got his stories from the Necronomicon, and he's made a couple movies. Even the Necronomicon movie, you forgot about that one too. How about you, Marcus? What's your favorites?
Oh boy, it's going about okay. Going back to kind of like the origins of early movies and based on real stories. Ed Gein, of course, was the inspiration for Psycho, because it was a guy who was sort of in love with his mom, like he was a mama's boy. They took out all of the I don't know, the stuff that became Texas Chainsaw Massacre, because he's also based on Ed Gein, but like the whole mama's boy and, preserving his dead mother, Ed and his dead mom, that was probably, at least in modern horror, what became like, okay, we're going to take some concepts and some principles and we're going to turn this into a horror film because, well, that's sort of messed up, so let's do that, and that's where Psycho came from. And then Ed Gein also inspired Texas Chainsaw Massacre, but had nothing to do with Texas, had nothing to do with chainsaws, but all the things that Ed Gein did and actually did was like dig up corpses and use their body parts that he dig from graves. He only killed 2 people, at least on record. But he actually did the thing like make belts out of nipples and lampshades out of human skin. That's all documented and, that's accounted for. That really happened. And I think Tobe Hooper, when he did Texas Chainsaw, he's like, oh my God, can you imagine a whole family that had things made of flesh around the house and, skinned lamps and stuff. And kind of like, instead of being mother in the film, they had grandpa. And so still, it's still based on Ed Gein and the weird thing, except grandpa's still sort of alive. And he was a ghoul. Like, Ed Gein was a ghoul. He mainly dug up graves. He only ventured to kill 2 women, women he knew from the bar, because he didn't have much of a social life, but, like, yeah. But there was no chainsaw. There was never anything. I've heard people say that Texas Chainsaw Massacre was based on, a serial killer who wore the skin of his victims and killed them with a chainsaw. None of the chainsaw stuff ever happened in Texas. It's all based on Ed Gein and what he did. And he would dig up graves and take skin. He would find fresh graves and take their skin and make things out of them and wear their skin and dance around in the moonlight.
Didn't they make Hannibal Lecter kind of off of that too? They said.
Oh yeah. Well, no. Well, not Hannibal Lecter, but Buffalo Bill is based on.
Oh, okay. Yeah, that's right.
Yeah, the other character, I forget the actor's name. He's so great. He's like, put the lotion in the basket. Yeah, that guy.
Put the lotion on.
He's based more closer to Ed Gein with, the taking of human skin and making a skin suit that he could dance around in. So that whole sequence of him dancing, to the camera, like wearing other people's skin, that's a very Ed Gein kind of homage. It's kind of messed up that we, as Americans, kind of take these imageries and things and just turn them into like what we accept as media or entertainment.
It's fascinating too. That's the other thing. That I think it's because it's so foreign to us, but yet it's so American. Because it's got that badass American to it, right? But at the same time, we don't understand how somebody's mind works that way. If you take a guy like a Jeffrey Dahmer, who is murdering people and eating them, but yet if you ran into Jeffrey Dahmer in a dark alleyway, you could beat the hell out of him. He wasn't a tough guy, right? He would like drug people and stuff, but somehow, even though these people, most of them are not big, strong, tough guys that you would be worried about could just forcibly take you and do whatever they wanted to you. But somehow these meek little people can do things that normal people like us, we just don't understand how a mind can work that way. The horror that they bring upon people, that depravity. We just don't understand why you would cut somebody's face off and wear it as a mask. We don't understand, making a belt out of nipples. It makes no sense to us. So I think that's part of it too, is that fascination of things that we don't quite understand and we want to understand.
True. Totally see that.
What they do is they take these movies and they're based on true events, but they sell them so people will like actually go out and watch it, and they 10 times glorify it, but it is really nasty stuff. It's happened to the people, like getting chopped up. But then what would sell? A guy who's going around just killing 2 ladies and getting dead bodies, or a guy with a chainsaw cutting people up, and a family that uses their bodies for different things, like you said, lamps and nipple belts and all kinds of crazy stuff. What would you guys rather see, that, or would you rather see just some boring dude or some weirdo that's killing a couple people and like doesn't really say nothing, or do you want to see some guy, it's a mute, that's 6'5", chasing everybody around with a chainsaw? What would you guys rather see? I'm sorry, but I'd probably see the guy with the chainsaw. Or would you rather see some little boy in The Exorcist, or some girl that's doing crazy stuff, doing the spider walk, throwing up peas, it's green stuff, but it's pea soup, and doing crazy stuff? You're going to want to see that. You want to shock people. You don't want to see the real story. You know what I'm talking about, guys?
Well, that's what's so fascinating to me about it is Like Jason Voorhees is never the actual killer. Kane from See No Evil is never the actual killer. It's never people like that that you would actually be afraid of. You know, the big scary guy. It's never that. It's always this meek little weakling that's some social reject, an idiot that nobody talks to, nobody ever liked. He couldn't get along, he couldn't get girls, he couldn't get anything because he's just a little twerp. But those are always the people that turn out to have killed 30, 40, 50 people or whatever. And to me, that is the most fascinating part of this, is you expect the killer to be big and scary because then you have a reason to be afraid of that person because they could crush you. But for it to be some little twerp that you very well might have thrown in a locker in high school and slapped around like a little girl. But yet he's murdering dozens of people. And everybody's afraid of this person until they see him. And then they're like, that's it? That's all he is? Just this little bitty fella? I mean, even Manson. Look at Charles Manson, who back in the day, everybody was scared of Manson. But Manson's a tiny little fella too. He's like 5 foot nothing. You know, he's just this little bitty tiny guy who never fit in, spent most of his life in prison, and used drugs and sex to get people to do what he wanted, basically. And that, to me, is the most fascinating part of all this, is that there's that disconnect between reality and the movies, because in the movies, like Old Boy and Marcus were saying, they're really badass villains. But in real life, the things that they're based on, these people are anything but. And to me, that is the most fascinating part.
Okay. Maybe this is ill timing, and I hate to bring this up because it's a good point. But like, why do we as like horror fans root for the villain? This is something that's always messed with me. Is like, I mean, growing up with horror fans, you root for the villain, and villains are always kind of like based on real people, like serial killers, etc. Like, why do we go for that? I mean, this maybe delves into an entire different psychological profile. I don't know why we like this, but when we have real horrific events that happen, maybe I'm trying not to change the whole subject here, but we have real events happen. I'm not going to go into specifics, but things happen, and people are affected by it, and those are true villains. But then when we watch horror movies, why do we we're gung-ho for the Jasons, the Michael Myers, the, Freddy Kruegers? Why is that? It's so weird and fascinating to me.
I think it's because that's what we're there for. If we were just went into a movie theater and we had no idea what movie we were going to watch, and somebody came on the screen and was doing horrific things, I don't know if we would be so into it. But the fact that we went there to see Jason or Freddy or Chucky or Michael Myers or whoever, we went there to see a horror movie, to see people get slaughtered. Usually teenagers who are doing dumb things get slaughtered. The point that we went there to see that, I think that's why we're kind of on that team. There is a really good point that you made in that statement, though, because if you think about it, look at Freddy Krueger. Now, Old Boy brought up a good point earlier about why he doesn't really like the Nightmare on Elm Street movies, because the original storyline, Freddy Krueger was a child molester that was diddling and killing kids, and the parents all got together and murdered him and burnt him. And that's why he looks the way he looks. That's why he's dead. That's why he came back to get revenge on the people that killed him by killing their kids in their sleep. That's the basic storyline. But when you think of Freddy Krueger, you never think about the fact that he's a kid toucher. You only think about the fact that he makes cool little one-liners.
Yeah.
And that could be it too, is they have all the best lines and all the best kills and all the best interesting stuff in the movie, where usually the counselors or the kids or whoever it is that's getting killed are rather boring and acted rather badly. I mean, the dialogue isn't very good, the acting isn't very good, and usually they're doing things that are looked down upon in society. So it's kind of like, even though, like, let's take Jason, for example, because that's a perfect example of this point. Even though he is the killer and he is murdering people, there's a sense that he's on the side of right and the side of justice, because these kids are doing wrong. They are drinking, they're doing drugs, they're having premarital sex. They're doing all the things you're not supposed to do when you're that age. So, in a way, he's delivering justice to these people for the sins that they're committing. And also, he's trying to deliver justice for the wrongs that were done on him and his mother. So, there's a sense in the script that he is the good guy, even though he's the bad guy. But I see the points you're making, and it is fascinating why we always seem to root for the bad guy. And it's not just in horror movies; it happens also in TV shows. You know, like Dallas, for example, was a long-running show. Everybody's favorite character was JR on Dallas, even though he was the bad guy. You know, it happens on wrestling all the time, where people root for the bad guys all the time in wrestling, and they can't stand the baby faces. So it is a weird kind of cultural thing where we always seem to root for the bad guy in our entertainment, but in real life, we all hate the bad guy.
Because in reality, we all want to be the bad guy, so that's the way you can get away with it watching a movie. Because it's like it's like a force of nature. Watching Jason Voorhees kill people, it's like a force of nature, just like Jaws. It's something that you'll never see. It's like like a tornado. And like you said, there's some truth to that because Jason does go back for revenge for, what happened to him. And the counselors were doing illegal stuff, smoking weed, sex, drinking alcohol, stuff like drinking and driving, overdosing. They have a point because instead of dying from that, you're going to die from Jason's wrath. And that's where I'm coming up, where they get the movie. Because I watched a thing about horror movies, how it has something to do with your mind. So they do it for purpose. Like they'll put Jason as like he's killing everybody, but there's a reason why he's doing it. It's not just, oh, he's just killing everybody for innocent, because they're innocent. They're doing stuff that is illegal that your parents always told you not to do. Not to do drugs, not to have sex before you're married and have children before you were unwedded marriage, drinking and driving. And all this stuff happens in this movies. And they were careless, watching him and the camp counselors. So his mom originally got revenge. They killed his mom and he came back for revenge for his mom. It wasn't just what happened to him. It happened, they killed his mother too. He was getting revenge. Just like all these movies, there's some reason why they come back for revenge. Like Candyman. He was tortured and killed as a slave and he came back for revenge. They cut his body open and put bees in it. They cut his hand on and put a hook in it off, and they put a hook in it. So, and he came back for revenge, but he does it to anybody. That's his revenge. And look at Ash from Evil Dead. Everybody likes him, but he's not really, he was a dorky guy that became a hero. Anti-hero. I wouldn't call him a hero, but like a vigilante. Like the Punisher, the Joker, stuff like that. But people love that kind of guy because he talks crap and he says bad words and he's funny and he hits on women. But he's not a hero like Captain America or Spider-Man like that. It's just people like that because they really want to be like that in real life. That's what they really want to do is kick ass and take names. But in real life, you can't do that. You can't go around beating people up and chasing people around with chainsaws because you go to jail or you get shot. So that's the way I take it. I don't know about what you guys think.
Well, a chainsaw is a horrible weapon in the first place. I never did understand that. Everybody gets so scared of Texas Chainsaw Massacre because the guy's got this chainsaw. Maybe it's just the sound of a chainsaw. I don't know. But if you think about it, a chainsaw is like the worst possible weapon you could use. Because if you come at me with a chainsaw, if I have a machete, if I have a baseball bat, if I have a gun, you're just done anyway. But even a knife will mess up a chainsaw because the way a chainsaw works is you have this chain that has little tiny blades on it. And it spins very, very fast around the bar. Well, if that hits anything, that chain flies off. You can go through wood with it, but as any redneck will tell you, and that's, I'm a mountain man, so I'll tell you right now, if you're sawing through a piece of wood and it happens to have a nail in it, like somebody made a tree stand and you didn't know, it was many, many years ago, and that nail was still in that tree and you had no idea, and you're sawing up that tree and you hit that nail, that damn chain flies right off the bar.
I'm going to add this in because I'm a sculptor. I sculpt in styrofoam, so I sculpt with chainsaws. Like that's my thing. Like I'll take but I use electric chainsaws. So I can just turn it on and turn it off when I want. When you have a gas-powered chainsaw, the second you let go, everything stops, and then you have to restart it. So follow my logic here. Anytime you let go of anything on a chainsaw, it stops. Because if something happens, it's a brake. It's a braking mechanism. So a chainsaw is not very ideal, I guess, unless you have an electric chainsaw. So,
well, even with an electric
kind of silly
chainsaw,
to me.
even with an electric chainsaw, that chain is going to fly off of there.
Oh yeah, there's that. But I'm just saying the stopping mechanism with chainsaws is like if you let go of any part of it, it's going to stop. So if you knock a chainsaw or hit someone, they're going to let go and it's going to stop. And they got to restart. And sometimes that's not easy. If you've ever started a chainsaw before, a gas-powered chainsaw, you're like, rah, rah, rah.
And how strong would you have to be?
It's inefficient.
How strong would you have to be to actually kill a bunch of people with a chainsaw? I mean,
Pretty strong.
that's insane, because after the first couple of people, man, your arms are tired. Then you got to hold it all girly and try to get them. It's just terrible. It would never work.
It's always funny when you ever see they get a chainsaw, like the regular person will get the chainsaw, they'll get the upper hand, and it won't start for them. But magically it starts for the killer, and they'll chase them around, and never understood that if you hit something out, if you even touch the chainsaw, if you miss it, lets go of the button, it stops. And you hit something, because I've cut wood with it, if you hit it, it goes, if you hit a piece of metal, it knocks it right off the chain. So you're right. It's just another thing of Hollywood. It's just like, with Freddy Krueger with blades on his hands. If you try to cut somebody all the time with those, I mean, your hand's gonna. It matters, you have to cut them a certain way, because if you got stuck, you could break your wrist. And just like running around with a machete, I mean, you could do some damage with a machete. I've seen that. I mean, how big Jason is? He's 6'4" or 5", whatever, and he's 280 pounds. He might be able to cut somebody's head off if he gets them just right, but it would just have to be a certain way how we do it. Just like Michael Myers, he's like 6 foot tall and he's picking up people in the air and killing them. I never understood that, because he's so small, but I mean, I guess he's superhuman, but he's killing everybody with like a butcher knife, so I never understood that.
Yeah, Michael Myers is another one of those that to me was never scary, because in the original Halloween movies, he was tiny. He was 5 foot nothing. I mean, he was this little bitty guy, and he's walking around with his weird mask and just standing around, and they always walk after you. They never run. They never actually try to get you. They just walk, and they just magically appear where you're going to be. But I don't know. I just never was afraid of him. Now, the new Michael Myers on the zombie version that old boy hates, that Michael Myers to me was actually more frightening, because he looked like he could actually hurt you. He was gigantic. And to me, that's what you got to be. If you're going to be some mass killer that I'm supposed to be afraid of, you have to be somebody that when I look at you, I go, oh man. I'm 6'4", about three bills. I'm a big, strong guy. Okay? I hold a master rank in Kung Fu. I taught self-defense for years. I'm a bad, bad man. So I'm not going to be afraid of tiny little midget Michael Myers. I'm not going to be afraid of little 2-foot Chucky doll. You know what I mean? But like a 7-foot guy that's built like a bodybuilder and wants to rip my head off, that's a little bit more of a challenge. To me, that just seems more frightening than some little guy.
I got to agree with you with that. But you also remember, don't always be fooled by that, because there's some dangerous people that's small. Mike Tyson's one of them. I wouldn't want to get hit by him, and he's 5'11". So, I mean, Rocky Marciano was 5'11". He can knock most people out. His punches were like, bulletproof, like getting hit with a bullet. So that's not always true, but yeah, I would see what you mean. I'm not going to get afraid of a little Chucky doll. It's 2 foot, 2.5 feet, but you also remember that thing's dead and possessed and it's coming after you with a knife. Yeah, you'll kill it. But somebody that's 6'8" that has a hockey mask, it has a big giant machete, I'm gonna probably think twice messing with that, because one, you could see he's got damage on him, like he's been shot and stuff like that and burned. I don't think punching him is going to do anything. And if you hit him a couple times with something, with a knife or you shoot him and he's still coming at you, you're in trouble. You better figure something else to do instead of trying to, fight him. Probably run. I would if I shot somebody 7 times and they kept coming at me. There's something wrong there. I'm not stupid. I'm not scared of people, but I'm not stupid either. So I wouldn't. I'd probably run, dude. I mean, if I shot somebody with emptied a whole clip in him and they still coming at me, there's something going on. I'm not going to stand there and try to fight him. I'm probably going to run. I don't know about you guys, but I'm sorry, but I'm not stupid.
And see, to me, with Jason, it's not even really his size that would bother me the most. First of all, he's got to smell horrible because he looks horrible. He always looks almost gooey, like he's slimy and gooey for some reason. And he looks like he's kind of been putrefying in the sun, like decaying or something. So I wouldn't want him touching me. I'm not even worried about the machete at this point. Dude, don't get close to me because I don't want to smell like that. And I definitely don't want whatever that gooey stuff is all over you on me. To me, that's the most disturbing thing about Voorhees.
Well, if you shot him 7, 10 times and emptied a clip on him, he kept running at you. I think you'd be kind of worried about that too.
I'd be like, don't kill me, but definitely don't touch me if you're going to kill me. Just hit me from over there.
Yeah, just throw some slime on me. I'll be dead. Or throw the machete at my face or something. Just kill me like that. Like some of these, like Texas Chainsaw Massacre, that guy's like 6'4", 6'5", and he's charging. I'd be more worried about him because, one, he's wearing a person's face on his face, and two, he's chasing me with a big chainsaw. But I mean, like I said, he is a pretty big dude, so I don't know. I would still be more scared of him holding that hammer that you hit cows in the head with than that chainsaw. I'm sorry, that's just my opinion. I'd probably have a better chance with the chainsaw. If he misses, you can kick him in the knee or something and take it away. But because I'm a pretty big dude too, I'm 6'2", 265, and I'm a pretty big guy. So I'm shaped like a linebacker, so I wouldn't be really too worried about him either. So I'll take out his damn knee, and that'd be the end of it.
If I had to choose one weapon that the killer would use against me, I would choose the chainsaw simply because it's the worst possible weapon that they could pick because they're going to be slow with it. They can't come slicing down like they could with a knife because a chainsaw is just awkward. You can't get the same angles that you could get with a knife, and it's heavy, so it's not like they can move quickly with it. So they're going to be slow. It's going to be predictable. And for somebody with training that knows how to fight, you're easily going to be able to dodge that and knock the ever-loving hell out of them. Now, when you're talking about some demented, crazy guy like Leatherface, it's very possible you might knock the hell out of him and it doesn't even faze the fella. You know what I mean? That's a definite possibility. But that weapon I would definitely choose if I could choose the weapon they were going to try to kill me with, because that would be the one you would have the easiest time with, I think. And a lot of people might think I'm absolutely out of my mind because the very idea of getting hit with a chainsaw scares the hell out of people. But in all reality, I don't think it's a bad weapon at all. Now, we've got about 10 minutes of the show left, give or take a few. So I want to try to talk a little bit about Marcus's upcoming movie that's coming out, Songs of Solomon, and what he's got going on. Because we talked about all kinds of horror movie stuff this episode, and it's been fun. But I want to give Marcus some time to talk about his projects that are coming up. So, Marcus, take it away, bro.
Okay, well, it's not so much my movie, Song of Solomon. I did effects on it along with Jeremy Cruz from Toe Tag Pictures. But, in regards to tonight's show, like referencing Exorcist being based on, the real thing, Song of Solomon is so much grounded in real exorcism. Like, no movie, not even The Exorcist, actually shows most of the process that goes into exorcism. And so Song of Solomon really delves into, the Catholic side of things, going into, like, what that process actually is like and what the ritual is and what is spoken. I mean, we all know, like, Christ compels you, but that's about it. And the movie The Exorcist doesn't really go too deep into the actual ritual. And so outside of Song of Solomon being an extreme gore film, because it gets very graphic, very violent, it's totally different from the graphic violence from Bouquet of Guts and Gore and Bloodshot. Those are two totally different films. And this, with the third film, we're like trying to do something totally different. And Stephen being, Christian and really heavily into the good and evil kind of force that's going on, that's where he wanted to take the third film. So Song of Solomon is an exorcism film, but it's, an extreme version. But there's so much religion, so much. You really have to know your stuff to understand kind of what's going on. So hopefully it'll hit people who know their stuff as far as religion goes and know their Bible. All of that's really embedded deep in the film. And so that's the new film. So that's coming out soon, maybe a few months. It's on the film festival circuit right now.
That's actually really cool because I do not like exorcism movies at all. They bore the ever-loving hell out of me. I'm just going to be honest with you. I hate them. Like, I didn't like The Exorcist. I didn't like any of these movies that deal with exorcism. I'm not a fan. But this one I might actually enjoy. I'm definitely going to check it out because I like things that deal with the actual lore, the actual rituals, the actual truth. To me, because that's what we do on this show is we delve into the actual lore and documentation of different cases in the past, and we bring that history forward and we present it. And I like that idea. That's never really been done in an exorcism film. Usually it's always the same special effects gags over and over again. It's always the same basic storyline.
It is.
But that to me sounds interesting.
It is. It is. I mean, you're right. And we watched, before filming the film, like we would rent because there's like this rash of exorcism films right now. So we decided like, okay, let's rent and watch everything and see what's being done and seeing what's really not being done. I mean, he already had his story idea, and we were really wanted to pick up at the start of the exorcism and going through the exorcism with multiple people trying to exorcise this girl. But the thing is, I mean, where do you go? Like, I mean, I think The Exorcist set the standard, and every film just tries to copy that. And they miss the point. They miss what works. They miss the religion. Like all of that's missing from all of these other films. I don't know if Steve's, nails it or not. I don't know. I guess up to other people to decide. But it is very deep. It's very by the book. And you don't see that in any of these films. They're just like, oh, she pukes, so we're going to have some puke. Obviously, like, we kind of take the puke thing way other levels, visually, graphically. But I don't know. It's such an interesting thing because it is so much steeped in this real lore, real religious text that the Catholics put out. I mean, that's everything that Song of Solomon is about. It's not trying to. I mean, it is a shock film. It is a gore film, but it's so much steeped in real tradition that I think sets it apart.
I can't wait, man. It sounds different. And just because we don't have that much time, I wanted to also throw in that you're going to be re-releasing Serbian film. I know everybody has seen that movie in the underground because it's very popular, and they're going to re-release that too. So I was just going to throw that out because we don't have much time.
Oh yeah, longer cut. Like right now, the current longest cut that you can find is 104 minutes. This is going to be like 7 minutes longer. Take that what you will. I don't know. Those who love it. Those who hate it really hate it.
Yeah,
it's one of the most
you're gonna
controversial
get
films
banned.
ever.
Well, we are about out of time, brother. So if you want to go ahead and give your shout-outs, Marcus, and then, old boy, you give your shout-outs?
Shout-outs to those who work with me. Kat Bernier, she's my effects partner. Stephen Byro, who gave me a job making Gore for his films, the Guinea Pig series. That's been a blessing. And anyone who likes what I do, thank you. Like, you keep me going.
Thank you, brother. Thank you. I want to give a good shout out to Marcus for coming on the show. All our fans for Parax, thank you for listening to us. My beautiful fiance. Check us out and all of our old shows on James Hershey Jr.'s YouTube page. He'll tell you the rest in a minute. But yeah, thank you, Unearthed Films, too. I love you guys. And Marcus, thank you for being on. We'll have you on again. Thank you very much, brother. James, go ahead. And I love you guys. Good night.
Hey, this has been a interesting show, and it usually is when Marcus comes on, because we try to have a topic and pretty much stick to it. But it's interesting because every time we talk to Marcus, we start on one thing and we end up somewhere completely different. I wish you guys got to hear the lost show that we did with Marcus. That the audio was just messed up on it. I don't know what happened. It was something went wrong. But on that show, we started out talking about reptilians and aliens, and it got all the way around to the very meaning of life and our existence on the planet and the evolution of man and all kinds of interesting subjects. It was probably one of the most interesting shows that we've ever done, and nobody got to hear it, which I think is so sad. But I think this one was fun too. We started talking about, some of the true stories on horror movies, and we kind of got into some of the plot devices and the hidden psychology in horror movies, which was interesting. And like I said, man, it's always fun. Thanks, Marcus, for coming on, man. We appreciate it. And we will definitely have you on again at some point. And maybe we'll try to retackle that reptilian show at some point in the future and see where that goes. Yeah, we are pretty much out of time. So thanks for coming on. If you guys want to watch any of the old shows, go to my YouTube channel. It's youtube.com/James Hershey Jr. All the old Staring into the Abyss shows are there. And also a bunch of different side videos we make about the subjects that we talk about on the shows. Really cool channel, totally free for you guys. So like the video, subscribe, please. Thank you, Marcus. Thank you, old boy. And until we speak to you again, love many,
Thank you, brother.
Trust few, and do harm to none. We love you. Bye-bye.
All these voices